Welcome to the M Word podcast, James. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you so much for having me. Your podcast rocks. I mean, this is the greatest.
Well, that's fantastic. So I just to set the stage, um, I would love for you to talk just what is your journey? You went to school for a, a wide variety of subject matter, from engineering to marketing or advertising. But when we first spoke, you talked about starting in photography. So tell me, how did you get from there to here?
So, um, I'm a passionate person that's surrounded by logic, and logic kind of messed me up. I mean, logic is good if we're in business, we're trying to solve a problem or whatever, so you have to be logical. But we're affected by emotion, okay? When I was young, I remember I used to get emotionally beat up by my mom and my middle brother. I'm the oldest of four kids. And I would sit in my room and I would play music. And music was like, I love this song. It kind of made me feel more normal and happy. And so later on, eventually I'm from Montreal originally, although for like 38 years I've been in Southern California. And I ran an advertising agency in Montreal. And I had all these, and I worked my way up and won major clients like Kraft Foods, Timex watches, blah, 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 all these other big companies. Okay. I say blah, blah, blah for a reason. I was very good technical. I had an opportunity to win the anti-drug campaign in America. And of course, I came up with logical reasons why you should not do drugs. And I lost to this guy who had an egg saying, "This is your brain," and cracked the shell and dropped the egg into a sizzling frying pan. This is your brain on drugs. And when I saw that, I realized two things. First is that was infinitely more powerful than anything I knew how to, than my ad. And I didn't know how to do it. It's like, this is emotional selling. And I started, realizing people are affected. People are, we make decisions for emotional reasons. And and I love psychology in school. And I was like, how can I be into psychology and business and not understand emotional selling? I mean, I realized that I have four kids. They're older now, but I used to walk up and down our hall, singing a song, and the kids would be following me singing this song. And I'm a very logical person, but I started to realize, like, wow, emotion, and the more I started learning this, emotion make helps people make decisions. And so,
Okay,
yeah.
so you say when you started learning this is because I do recognize it's very easy for us to have this beautiful 2020 lens looking back as, people who've matured in their business and their life, and you can put a framework around it. But like when you were at the ad agency and lost that campaign opportunity to the guy who comes up, "This is your brain on drugs." In that moment, was that clear to you that was like an emotional thing, or were you like, "I can't believe our great ideas"? And like at what point did this, was it a eureka moment for you, or was it
Yes,
was it okay? And when was that moment?
a long time ago.
Okay.
A long time ago. And it made me realize, so, there are two things we do when we learn a skill. The first one is we want to have a career and income and all that stuff. So we got that. But for me, it's more than that. It was like, it's got to be passionate stuff. I've got to be learning new stuff. I mean, I think the best teachers are students, you know? And so for me, I'm like passion. I have this book called Brain Glue. Okay. Well, just because I wrote it doesn't mean I'm done with it. I'm like, every day, I'm like, what a great idea. I was reading about Muhammad Ali, and he's known for rope-a-dope. And I'm like, rope-a-dope, yes. He would lean against the ropes, and a guy would hit him and over and over again, and the ropes would like help him so it didn't hurt, you know? And he called it rope-a-dope. And so he was famous for rope-a-dope. I like to say, like, so what are we famous for? What do people know us for? Because they knew him for rope-a-dope. And I go like the book hook, the hook book. I've got to
Mhm.
help you have a hook. I was just
So
having
let's
fun
talk,
with that, but that's
let's
new.
let's talk about your book, because your book Brain Glue, you first published it with a different name, right?
I did. So actually, it had two different names. So Jack Canfield sold 500 million Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And I was talking to him and he said, you know, you drove me crazy. He said, I hate you. And he said, I'm so sorry. Why? He said, no, because I started reading your damn book. I couldn't put the damn thing down. I'm like, oh, okay. Can I get a quote? It's like apologize and try to get it. He says, on one condition, you got to change the title. So here's, stupid me. So I was reading and I'm learning about Carrie Smith, who started a company called HVLS fans, okay, high volume, low speed fans. And a friend said to him, like, can you, these are fans that go in farms, in a barn. You wouldn't put air conditioning, you put a fan. So he changed the name of his title of his book, the whole story. So I won't go through the whole story, but he changed the title of his fans to Big Ass Fans, and sales exploded. Okay, he actually sold his business for 500 million after. It's amazing. So I'm thinking, okay, I wrote the book, and here's the big ass fan story. So why don't I put ass in my title? So I called it Dump Your Half-Ass Marketing Strategy, and people started buying the book and started doing well. Then Amazon came to me and said, stop. We're not allowing you to run ads on Amazon. You can run it anywhere else, but you can't run your ads on Amazon because of your swear word,
Mm.
And I'm like, no. I said, and I've
You're
got
like,
like, I had
shit.
80 reviews. Exactly. I had 80 reviews. People are buying it. So too bad. We just discovered it, and that, you got a swear word and you can't have it. So I said, please, because I've got all these reviews, if I change the title, would you let me keep the reviews? They said, well, normally we don't, but this time we will. So me like a putz, this is what I chose. Okay. Dump your, so it's dump your half-ass marketing strategy. Sell more with the right brain marketing strategy, which is very logical. Okay, so I can't.
I mean, the irony here, because the content inside of this book is on how to actually use like sticky words, right? And be
exactly.
emotional.
That's what Jack Canfield said. So it's now sell more with the right brain marketing strategy. And I'm tortured because my name's James Bond, so you can't even find me because you find Sean Connery and all these things. You look it up. But anyway, and people couldn't remember the name because it's such a long name. Sell more with a right brain marketing strategy. So Jack Canfield said, I'll give you tons of quotes. You can videotape me and everything else. I love, love, love your book on one condition. You have to change the damn title. I said, what? He said, your whole book's
Not
about brain
again.
glue. You're teaching us how to be emotional, and you have a logical title. How dare you? It's like, sorry. And he was right. But it's just, most of us are logical people. And that's what brain glue does, is it teaches you how to use emotion so you could sell. But because we're a logical person like me, we
Well,
fall back into a logic.
I mean, is it because it's logic, or do you think that it's also like, you know, any of us who work with, and I know you work with clients like more generally around, growth strategy and all that kind of thing. And I work with clients all the time, and it's like you can't see the forest for the trees, right? And so this was you're filled with all of these great ideas, and but like because you're so close to it, you almost can't separate to have that. I think that Eureka title pop out immediately, right? Like I find myself using way too many words, and I help people use few words, right? Like but
Right,
when I'm trying to do my own description for myself, because it's all so important, and if I leave any of it out, how are people going to know what I'm really trying to say, right?
right.
Do you think that it's because it was yours, as opposed to what you have the ability to see other people's stuff and kind of cut through it right away?
Well, yeah, but I'm a logical person. Learning emotion. I mean, brain glue is really for, if you're logical out there, that means you probably have a really good business, products or services, because you figured out logically, oh, this would be good for people. Okay. But you need to sell it with emotion. Well, I do too. It's like I'm a victim. I'm not like I'm perfect at this. Nope. I'm
Mhm.
learning, and it's strengthening me. I mean, it's just I mean, how would you like to invent a product, have your biggest competitor steal it from you, make a fortune while you starve to death? Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, no. Okay. Well, that's what happened with Post cereals competing with Kellogg's, and they decided to create these little cakes that go inside a toaster. It's
Mm.
got strawberry blueberry jam in it, and they called it Country Squares. And he was so proud of it. 3 months before he launched it, he started promoting it to the media. So the head of Kellogg's, of course, was watching it and went like, "Oh, that's incredible. Guys, figure out how to make that product. We got to make a product that goes in a toaster, but we need a better name. Let's see, it pops out of the toaster. Pop, okay? Pop. We have to use that word
Hmm.
because it pops out of the toaster, which in Braingo is called sense elevation. Pick a sense. So the sound. Oh, it's what does it sound like? Well, it pops out of the toaster, okay? And then back then, Andy Warhol was a pop artist. He was famous. He was world famous. So pop art, they knew pop art. So he went pop art, pop tart. We call it anchoring, where you take something that's already there and you just use
Hmm.
it for yourself or twist it a little bit, but everybody knows it. So Pop Tarts exploded like crazy, and Country Squares, within 3 months, they stopped even selling it. Actually, they launched Pop Tarts 1 week before Country Squares, of course. You know, people bought
Hmm.
it like crazy and they ran out of product. So he actually ran an apology in newspapers because he didn't want anyone buying Country Squares. And he said, I am so sorry we ran out, but just hold on for a few days and we'll have more of it. And last year, so Country Squares doesn't exist about just a little while after they launched it. And Pop Tarts last year sold 3 billion Pop Tarts. He stole the idea from Country Squares, but he recognized that I needed a name, an emotional name that people go, oh, Pop Tarts pops out of your toaster. Cool. Hey, let's check that out. Ooh, it's good. And it's how many of us have a really good product, but we struggle. And
So talk to me about that. So, the inventor or the business owner or the leader, they're logical, they're going about their business in a logical way. Can you train, is this a left brain, right brain thing? Can someone who's analytical and purposeful, like, in the idea, is this about creativity or is this about something that's more, can you layer a process on this to come up with the Pop Tart, if you will?
this is about persuasion, is really what
Okay.
it is. And that's what we want to understand. I mean, when we understand, I mean, I was thinking of how many years ago this happened. 1962, 72, 82, 92. So President John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Tons of people know that now. I'm old enough to remember him actually saying it. Excuse me. But people have heard it and it resonates, it sticks to the brain. It's something called chiasmus, which is a flip. All for one and one for all. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Things like
Mhm.
that. And so when we hear something like that, it sticks to the brain. And in marketing, we want to put it on a product, or we want to put it in, the slogan for the product. You
Mhm.
know, um, uh, what do you call it? They melt in your mouth, not in your hands. M&Ms, they melt in your mouth, not in your hands. There's a famous song, "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Smell. Ugh, what does Teen Spirit smell like? Ugh. That doesn't sound good. It's like a locker room with kids. But I mean, when you add something, there are certain tools that when you add it to the brain, it sticks to the brain like glue, and then people go like, oh, I mean, I had the story of Squatty Potty was just brilliant. As a mom and son with no business experience, and the mom was constipated, and the doctor told her, you got to raise your feet off the ground 6 to 8 inches off the ground when you're on a toilet. It changes the shape of your body. She tried it and it worked, and they said, oh wow, wouldn't it be fun if we could actually, they love Shark Tank, so they said, maybe we can get on Shark Tank if we can create a product. Wow, how about this product? We wrap it around a toilet. They got online and found a manufacturer to manufacture it for them, and they went like, wow, they can manufacture it for like $4 or $5. We could sell it for 1997, $20. We could actually make some money, huh? But what are we going to call it? And they said, first, we can call it the toilet stool, but that's not a good name. Toilet stool? My wife says the stool. No, I don't think that would work either. But she said, what's another word for toilet? And that's potty. And you're kind of squatting, squatty potty. I was in the hospital 3 months ago for heart surgery, heart bypass surgery. Not fun. And this nurse, she said to me, what do you do? And I said, well, I wrote a book called Brain Glue. And I told her the squatty potty story. She stopped me and said, she starts laughing and she says, I've got to tell you this, okay? I'm a nurse, so I know you have to raise your feet off the floor when you're on the toilet. And so I have this little stool at home, but I was in a store and I saw Squatty Potty and I had to buy it because I love the name. It was hilarious. I
Yeah.
said, well, let me see if I understand this. You already have a product that does this, but you bought it anyway just because you love the name. She said, yeah. But it
The
lets you
emotional connection there.
exactly.
So, obviously your book, I mean, just the accolades alone and your success as an author and putting this out as, and I know this is part of your profession because you help businesses. You have another vocation that you're doing in parallel. So, am I wrong to think, or am I right to think like that this have you had you told the Amazon story, but this book, like what's been hard about it? Like what's gotten in your way from, sort of bringing this idea, if you will, to the world? Or has it just been smooth sailing because business is easy once you find your eureka moment?
It's both, but mostly it's fun. Excuse me, sorry about that. But let me tell you this, okay? I saw a guy with a t-shirt that said life sucks and then you die. And I'm like, no, this is life right now. What are you waiting? You know, we've got to have a wonderful life. And so for me, brain glue is fun to share with people. And usually they'll share back with me, oh yeah, that's a great idea. In fact, let me tell you about this, da, da, da. And it's fun, you know? I mean, if we're selling something or if we're selling ourselves and we have fun when we do it, that's life. That's got to be our life. Life is too short for us to have just, I mean, yeah, we're going to have miserable things and problems and mistakes and stuff like that. And that's good.
Hmm.
But mistakes will often help us, be even better with what we're doing. I work
So
as a marketing consultant. You work as a
yeah.
marketing consultant. We make mistakes sometimes. Nobody's 100% right. I love the fact that Coca-Cola. So you can think of Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Okay, so Coke was in all these restaurants. So Pepsi wanted to get all these restaurants, but Coke was already there. So what did Pepsi do? They bought restaurant chains. Okay, totally different. They came up with a different idea because they said we want to be in restaurants because we think people are going to love our product. And so for us, you know, we can't look at what everybody else did and say, I mean, we will do that, but we can't look at what everybody else did and say, okay, we have to do exactly the same. We have to understand like what's going to motivate people to buy the product, and what motivated them 5 or 10 years ago isn't going to motivate them today. We got AI today, so wow, some people love it and some people hate it. It's in marketing, it's kind of fun because you get to bounce ideas off it. Most of
Yeah,
them are
talk
stupid.
to me. How are you using AI in your own business?
Well, for brain glue, I try it. Excuse me. I try brain glue and it gives me terrible responses. I think it doesn't understand emotion as much as we
Hmm.
do.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
that's one of the most important things. But AI is fun to bounce ideas off. We get an idea for a product or for an idea or for an ad that we're running. What's a good title for the ad? And we get lots of titles. And you have to go through lots and lots of them before you get any that are good. And you have to keep giving it like suggestions. How about this? Do this, make it sound funny, blah, blah, and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
you know, but I mean, it's brain glue is just another tool that we get to use. It ain't the best tool. It is sometimes interesting because it gets us bouncing ideas off each other. And we want to bounce it off a friend, and that's really good. But in business, a lot of people, you don't always have somebody you can bounce ideas off.
Yeah.
So AI helps from that standpoint. I find it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, and I consume a lot of social media that is on, you know, using AI for business optimization, process optimization, but then also on the creative side as marketers. One of the neat tips that I saw that we've played with, and playing with it is the right, I think, framework because it's not a calculator. You don't input a few things, get an output, and you're done, right?
That's right.
um, is asking AI. So it's not my idea. I use this from somebody else. You do all the work. You come up with your A/B test, and you can ask AI, how will my audience who is A, B, and C perceive this? What are they likely to take away or remember and like you actually get that when you say run ideas by it, it's like it's that type of prompt. It's not just asking it for the output, but it's asking for it to sort of evaluate what you're coming up with. And you can you can get some feedback that your own blind spots of what you don't see in your own creativity. And even with all that logic you're talking about, but that you let the AI be like, yeah, a lot of people have a negative association with that kind of phrasing or that word or whatever it is. Um, that could be really important feedback, I think.
Well, Henry Ford used to say, you know, if you ask people what they would prefer, they would say a faster horse because they wouldn't think of cars. Okay.
Right.
Uh, and it's just, I mean, people don't understand, until we tell them something, they don't get things. I mean, yeah, they're, so 60% maybe of the things, whatever it is, some of the things they can tell you, yeah, I'd rather have this instead of that or whatever else. But then you show them something different they haven't seen before, haven't considered, and they go like, huh, you know. And I'll give you an example. Steve Jobs invented a camera inside a car. I mean, a camera inside a phone. Me, I'm supposed to be this marketing expert. I went like, who the hell wants a camera inside a phone? You should see my phones are like packed. I mean,
Yep.
we take pictures all the time, and I'm supposed to be an expert as you are, and yet there are things that we and everybody else don't relate to until we actually start trying it out, and we try it out and we go like, oh, that's interesting, and we start learning new things. I mean, AI, Chat GPT, I remember it isn't that old. People say the, the camera, the phone isn't that old. People don't realize it. I mean,
That's
my
right.
grandfather, I remember he's passed away a few years ago. He was born in 1900. And I was talking to him one day and I said, well, what's it like? He said, when I was a kid, every time somebody would drive a car into the neighborhood, we'd scream, tire horses, because the horses would escape because of the noise of the cars. It's like, well, I never even thought of that. That's true. He was born in 1900, so they had no phones, no cars,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, like no TVs and radios. I mean, we live on this stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, just change happens and it
Change
affects
happens.
us.
So with change, James, what do you think you'll be doing differently a year from now?
I don't know. I'm having fun with brain glue, so let me start there. Um, I just, it's a lot of fun to share with people. I think more than
Mhm.
anything, the greatest benefit I get, I do a lot of work with the Small Business Administration, volunteer work. It's like
Mhm.
paying it back. One of my favorite movies of all time was Pay It Forward. And I can relate to that. If, we've been lucky and good things have happened to us and everything else, we've got to share with other people and give back. But one of the greatest things I get is I get feedback where people come back and say, "Oh, wow, hey, I started a business because of the one of the coaching that you did or one of the trainings that you did. Well, and look at what's happened now, and it's kind of fun." And I think it's more and more people are realizing they also either want to be in business for themselves or they want to part-time be in business for themselves to do something. And I
Mhm.
and I think that's it's just a wonderful opportunity they get and we get to help them when we can.
Yeah. So what would you say to folks, weren't you working with the in that SCORE program, and it's such a great resource that businesses really should know about. If they don't, like, get on it, because there are SCORE mentors across the country. It's free to you as a business to work one-on-one with a mentor on everything from writing a business plan to growth and everything in between. Um, so, business owners, they have a lot of hurdles in the beginning, right? Well, they have a lot of hurdles at any point, but like your philosophy of like, make it be fun, it's like, these weren't your words, but my interpretation, it's sort of like, don't take it all so damn seriously. Like, it's like, we're all human, we all screw up. So, like, what advice do you give people? Like, really, because it's like you're facing fiscal pressure, the clock is ticking on making a business work or not work, changing environments. Like, how do you coach people to be able to ride that out?
Well, there are two things. It is interesting that the greatest businesses of all time were often created by young kids because they didn't realize what they were going to be up against. You know,
Ignorance is bliss, right?
exactly. I mean, as we get older, we go, "Are you sure you want to do that?" It's like, yeah. Google. I'm going to start Google. We're going to call it Google. Okay, but so um, no, there are so many opportunities. Absolutely, there's Score. Score gives you an opportunity. There are videos online with YouTube that are just amazing. I mean, there's just so much, you have a question like, oh wow, if I, you come up with the craziest idea, you go into Google and or YouTube and type it in, and you get answers that are like, wow, I never even expected it. That's really cool, and it's fun
Mhm.
because if you have a really great idea, you could put it on some of these things also. And he said, somebody said, well, I don't have a camera. I said, but you have a phone. The phone has a camera. You can even videotape. Famous people use the phone, the cameras on the phone to videotape. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's one of the wonderful things is there are two things that we recognize. One is not everybody has the same opinion. Okay, so we got that. But two is there's so much opportunity to try stuff that you really want. And maybe it'll just be a part-time thing you're doing while you're doing your job. Okay. I mean, I love the famous people. Like people say, well, I don't know if I'm going to go out of business. I said, well, Walt Disney went bankrupt. He did? Yeah. It made him a lot more serious, but he was, I mean, famous people have all kinds of things, Oprah Winfrey was told, you shouldn't be on TV, I
Mhm.
mean, she was, I think, doing weather and stuff, and they said you're terrible on TV. Oprah Winfrey, look at what happened to her. I mean,
Yep.
it's just, and it's fun because it isn't. You have to go with passion. Hey, I would love to do such and such. Lucille Ball, Lucy, I love Lucy. Okay, I mean, by the way, they use alliteration. That's a tool, brain glue tool. What are words that go? They want Lucy, love. So what are other words that begin with the letter L? How about lucky? Why don't we call it Lucky Lucy? No, what are
Little different
love
connotation.
Lucy? I love Lucy. There you go. Okay, but she wanted, she was an actress and she wanted to be in business. She wanted to do something with her husband. Okay, with Desi Arnaz because he was kind of, going off and with other girls and all this stuff, and so she wanted to do something like that. And so they came up with this whole show, their own show of I Love Lucy, and it became a blockbuster.
Yep.
So I mean, it's just
Yep.
for all of us. And if you look at history, you start to realize that the most fun people have is when they're doing something that they're passionate about. And
I think
so,
that's such a great point, James. It's the passion, the joy, because life can be hard. It can suck, but it doesn't have to if you kind of, to me, you haven't used this word, but it's like it's being authentic. It's knowing what matters to you. For you, you radiate that, joyful fun is like that's a driving value in how you're spending your time, your precious time on this earth. And I think that's an important message to leave with our listeners. So to close us out, I like to do a little fun rapid fire. And let's start with one that, besides your book, Brain Glue,
uh-huh.
is there a book that you always recommend?
Well, they're absolutely Think and Grow Rich. I think is a wonderful book. But also Jack Canfield's Chicken Soup for the Soul books. They're originally designed. They were originally going to be called 101 Motivational Stories That'll Change Your Life, and he didn't understand brain glue, that he was applying brain glue, but now he does, and that's why he's excited about it. But he recognized that I want to, chicken soup makes you feel better. My book makes you feel better. Chicken
Mhm.
soup for the soul. Actually, it was chicken soup for the spirit. And he went, it doesn't really sound right. And then eventually he said SOUP, soup, SOUL, soul. That's alliteration, repetition of sound. Like, Coca-Cola, Best Buy, PayPal, TikTok,
Yep. Yep.
it's,
Yep.
so he came up with that. But just, yeah, Chicken Soup for the Soul books are wonderful. Also, I love John Gray, who did Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. That blew my mind because it's like, he actually had a book called Men, Women, and Relationships, and no,
Like
people
snooze
loved it.
bore.
But yeah, exactly. Well, people loved it. No one was buying it. And one
Right.
day
Right.
he's talking to a group, and he said, it's almost like men and women are from a different planet sometimes. And one woman says, what planet are men from? He said, I guess men are from Mars. And everyone started laughing. When he got home, he said, well, men are from Mars. I guess women are from Venus, the god of love. Yeah. And he changed the title and sold 50 million books just by
That's
changing the title.
phenomenal.
He was telling
That's
me that. And I'm like, what? What? Really? And so, but yeah, I think those are great books. Men
all
are from
right. Do
Mars,
you have
women
a
are from Venus is awesome.
Yeah. I read that early in my marriage. I like that one too. Do you have a favorite social media?
Um, yeah, I get hooked on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Okay.
I love I mean, I just thought Facebook has such different things. That's what's
Hmm.
fun about it. I'll do it
Yeah.
like early in the morning. I'll get up. I got to take my daughter to work, and so I'll get up like a little earlier. And for 15 minutes, I'll go through Facebook and see what's new. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Taylor Swift, yay, nay, or don't care?
I must be too old. I love musicians, but I really don't know any of Taylor Swift's songs.
Okay.
I'm an
Okay.
old guy. What can I say? One of my daughters loves Taylor Swift from top to bottom, so that's great. But I know that there are guys that she, has bad relationships with, so she does lots of songs about bad relationships. That sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah. And my last question for you, James, is where do you want to go on your next vacation?
Um, I in part of Europe that I've never been before. I'm not
Hmm.
really a great traveler. I've got a son who lives in Hawaii, so we go to Hawaii a lot. We've got a daughter in northern New York State and stuff. But there are parts of Europe that are really fascinating. I mean, like Finland and and like you could see it's like a totally different environment, which is
Yeah.
kind of fun. So yeah, just the parts of Europe seem fun.
Oh,
My
very nice.
wife's been to China, and so she really enjoyed that. But I don't know.
All right. So maybe you're Europe bound if you can get your way, right? So,
Yeah.
well, this has been a lot of fun, James, talking to you about your journey, your this book, Brain Glue, the concept of what it is, but I think I most enjoyed just the joy that you exude, and I think that's so important for people in business and in life. So, thank you for joining us, and we will. We will link to Brain Glue in the show notes and your LinkedIn. But any last place, where would you want people to look you up for your
Yes,
business
BrainGlue.
yearbook?
Yes, brainglue.com will take you to a page, and you can just look at a lot of stuff in there.
Perfect. Brainglue.com. Thank you so much, James.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you.